essential variables. What's an essential variable?
Necessity.
Needed.
Necessity in the weld.
Keep going, keep going. What?
Something to change would affect the weld.
Good. Okay, so ultimately, the essential variable affects the mechanical properties of your weld. Now, why is this important?
You won't get a good weld.
Okay, you won't get a good weld, but I want you.
Sound weld.
Okay, so last week, what did we talk about? Oh, what? What did we talk about last week? You guys remember? What did we write down? Bueller. Okay, Bukowski. No? Who was here? Jeez, okay. What did we work on? We worked on what? WPS.
Oh, yeah.
What's our WPS? It's our recipe, right?
Oh, the weld procedure sheet.
Right?
Woo! There we go! Woohoo! He remembers now. Okay, not that high, right?
What?
Okay, so we want, and we're going to do a welding procedure, right? Now, an essential variable becomes extremely important. If I'm missing an essential variable, it means you as the welder are unable to complete the weld properly, right? Now, what happens when, you know what? Instead of using 60-10, we want to use 70-18.
We change it.
Can I just scratch it out and put something else?
Negative?
No, what happens? We have to make a whole new recipe. We have to make sure the recipe is pre-qualified. And if not, we need to qualify our recipe in the test kitchen, right? Okay, so now, what are some of the things that are an essential variable? Hold on, not that fast. Okay, so what are some of the things that are essential variables that we need to recognize and pay attention to? Because when some of those things are changed, it is a snowball. Okay, so what would be the first thing that we're gonna look at?
Materials.
Say that again, hold on.
Welding process.
Process, good. If we change the process, we have to requalify. Okay, what would be the next one? You said base metal?
Correct.
Base metal.
Material, no?
Well, that's the same thing. Metal.
The electrode.
Electrode.
Gas.
Polarity.
Hold on, you guys are going fast. Polarity. Gas. Okay. He's the only smart one. He brought out his sheet. What else?
Oh.
Now, position is one of those things that it can affect it, but not always. Okay, so that's kind of the half and halfer. Okay, what else?
The coating.
Well, doesn't that take us back to the electrode?
Correct.
If we're using submerged arc welding, yes, then the flux matters. And there are certain flux compositions and things like that that are alloying materials that are going to be added, but we're just sticking with the basic 5. Okay, what else?
Current.
Current, oh, polarity.
Oh, yeah. Voltage, or is that also polarity?
Good, voltage and amperage.
That's what you got.
Now, the caveat to this one is it's a percentage of whatever we change. So something that maybe we give, they give or take about 10 to 25% change. If it exceeds that, then you have to requalify it. Okay, but usually there's a range in the qualification area. What did we write down for that 70-18? What was our range? Anan? Remember we wrote down a range?
Oh yeah, 193 to 215.
Right, so 193 to 215. That gives us a pretty good range. So usually we're not having to adjust that too much because we already have that kind of leeway in there. So should we make a change over 15%, it's an issue. Okay, what else? Is travel speed an essential variable?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
Unless you're robots, travel speed doesn't matter. It's not something that has to requalify our WPS. Just because you weld at 8 and you weld at 11. I don't have to requalify it, right? It's just a difference in welder. So it doesn't change the mechanical property of what we're doing. What else can be an essential variable?
Weld type.
As in what? As in joint design? Good, joint design. And that's kind of a given. If I'm going from a fillet to a groove, yeah, I got to redo a whole bunch of stuff, right? What else? How about backing or no backing? Well, doesn't matter. Falls under joint design. How about back gouging? It's kind of a Why would we use a back gouge? Okay, so if we have a piece,
To get it straight all the way through, or
right, okay, so let's assume that this is our joint, okay? Now, can you see that? Okay, so this is our joint, so we can see, actually, you know what, I'll make it a little bit longer so we don't have to back gouge so much. Okay, we can see that this is PJP, or a partial joint penetration. This means it's not going all the way through. How far is it gonna go through if I weld it? Probably about that far, right? Now what happens to the other edge here? We only have partial joint penetration. So, they say back gouge, scoop this part out right here, and we're gonna make this little gouge here, and then we're going to gouge it until we hit that sound material, or other weld, and fill it in. So that now, this becomes a complete joint penetration, or CJP. It changes this. So now we can know that it's fully penetrated all the way through. The only thing is that sometimes we can't do that. We don't have access to the back side. Okay? Now, this is probably gonna fall more into joint design, whether or not we back gouge or not. Okay, what else? What else you got on there? Anything else?
Flow rate one?
No. Float rate, remember, we still have that kind of area. Now, if we change from, let's say, from CO2 to argon, yes, right? Because the penetration changes. But how much? Not really. Okay, what else? Well, this probably will fall into joint design, but one pass versus multiple passes. That can affect, right, how we're doing this, how much heat we're putting into this. It can affect the material type and all of that, right? It kind of snowballs. Okay, now, so when we requalify a base metal, when we look into the code book that we're qualifying for, there's base metals that we can exchange with. Okay, so they give us an ability to change. So if this is a group metal, or a group 1 metal, which is ASTM A36, and this is a group 1, and I find one like A52, and it's still within that group, usually we don't have to qualify because they have the same characteristics. And there's minor changes. But if it falls outside of that group, then yes, we have to requalify. Same thing with our electrode. The electrode, you know, so maybe I'm going from a 70-18 to an 80-18. Would I have to requalify it? No. It still has the same characteristic, except we're just making it stronger. So most of the welding codes say, as long as you go up in strength and not down, you do not have to requalify. Okay? Polarity, definitely, that's a big one, right? So what polarity am I most likely to see structural material?
Is it ECEP?
Good, yes. Why?
Because so that the work doesn't get too hot.
Well, not that the work gets too hot, but remember, what if we use AC?
It has a stopping point, is it,
Right, it does have a stopping point at 0, but that also means it does this, right? Are we gonna get very good penetration? Probably not. Not enough for structural material. So, say, okay, we have to use AC, this is all we have, we are up to shit creek. We have to requalify it. So you're really up shit creek, because that means you have to call somebody in to requalify it. Gas. Now, if we're keeping our flow rates the same, and maybe we're just, there's a percentage of, 25% change, whether it's a mixed gas or not, after that, we'd have to requalify. Position. What position might I have to look at more closely if I'm going to change positions?
Either vertical or overhead.
Vertical, why?
Because the flow of the
Okay, and then
full metal.
read to me under position. What does that say?
One after two of.
Go like right below it. What does it say? Progression. Your progression, up or down. Now, I have no progression on there? I thought I had progression. So that saying, am I doing a vertical up or a vertical down? Now we know that vertical down doesn't give us a lot of penetration. And vertical up is going to give us more penetration. So if I change it from vertical down to vertical up, we may need to requalify it and vice versa, because it changes the way the material is being penetrated. Okay, voltage and amperage, kind of a given as long as we're within that range. Usually, unless we're doing significant changes, we're not going to requalify. Okay? Joint design, totally. Anything else I'm missing, guys? Anything else that can affect the mechanical property of my joint or my weld?
Transfer mode we want?
Ooh, that's a good one. What's transfer mode? Give me a guess. Give me an idea what you think it is.
It's like the way this says for GMAW, but it's like the way the electrodes go into the basement.
Pretty much, yeah. So there's probably 4 or 5 different transfer modes with GMAW. GMAWS with a short circuit, that's what we have here, doesn't penetrate enough. So if we go from something else to that, definitely has to be requalified, because it's going to definitely affect the penetration of our material. If we also have spray transfer, globular transfer, as well as pulsed. GMAWP is one of the only GMAW processes that is pre-qualified under AWS D1.1, because we're able to give it bursts of really hot arc. When we talk about short circuit, it's usually under 200 amps. So usually it's not enough to penetrate. Most of the issues that we have with GMAW short circuit is incomplete fusion, lack of fusion, those types of things. So we know that we may have a fusion issue if we choose that transfer mode. Make sense? Yes? All right, any more questions on this?
Please like and subscribe. Stay tuned for another part.
Weld the world.